Howdy everybody, this is Steve, and I'm going to talk all about the Commodore 64 Dead Test cartridge today. This is a fantastic cartridge that will help you in your troubleshooting of Commodore 64 hardware-related issues. My friend Kurt asked me, what does this thing do? And I thought that would make a great video. So here we are. So what does this thing do? First off, you can get this in a variety of different forms, packages, etc. You can buy this on eBay as an old stock existing, when it was first created, Dead Test cartridge. You can make your own with one of these VersaCarts. This is a VersaCart 64. This was sent into the channel by Matt D'Amico over at RetroBits. And this one here will let you put on a bunch of different ROM chips and change the switches and the jumpers, and then it will boot whichever ROM you want. So you can put like 8 different ROMs on this cartridge. I have a video about this down in the description. You can also get the Easy Flash cartridge, and as far as I know, with the Easy Flash cartridge, the only thing that you can do is run the ROM after the machine has booted, not actually run it straight at boot. And that does something a little tiny bit different. Maybe I'm wrong about this. If I am, please let me know in the comments because I would love to know about that. What'll happen with this is it will boot into the Easy Flash menu itself, and then you can pick the ROM to load, and you can do some useful tests with it that way. But because the cartridge didn't boot itself, the machine has to have enough working guts in order to boot this cartridge. So there is a link in the description down below on where to get these things on eBay. The one that I'm going to link below is going to look a little bit different because it's going to have a case. I've mentioned this a couple of times before. It's not worth it enough to me to buy another one to get one with a case, but if you don't have the case on it, this is a very short cartridge. It's very hard to get out of the cartridge slot because there's not enough physical oomph to grab onto it. So how does it work? What happens is you take your Commodore 64 machine, you put this in the cartridge slot, and you turn it on. And when you turn it on, you'll get a little light up here that indicates that it's actually on, which will tell you that you've got power to the cartridge slot. The way that the 6502 chip works is it is all set up here to look for a very specific address on the cartridge, and if there is something at that address and it is executable, it will run that first. So what you can do with that is you can remove a lot of chips off of this board and do some diagnostics. One of the first things that you'll see when you're troubleshooting Commodore 64s is you get what's called a black screen. It is in fact black, however, it's an empty video signal. That tells you that your VIC is working and that your devices that put out your video signal are working fine, but there's nothing to send out because something next in line after that doesn't work. And what could that be that's next in line after that? We're not 100% sure, but there's enough of it that's broken that it's not working. It could be your PLA that's not working. Sometimes that shows up as random colors. It could be one of your RAM chips that's not working, preventing it from actually finishing the boot. Or it could be the 2 multiplexers that control the RAM sockets and the addressing that isn't working. So this cartridge will be able to tell that. This cartridge boots up first, and the first thing that it does is it scans each of your RAM chips, and depending on which one it finds as bad, it will flash on the screen a series of colors. And there's a document that tells you what they are, but just for a quick reference, if this RAM chip is bad, which it's probably not this one, if this RAM chip is bad, it'll flash 5 times in a row and then stop, and then it'll flash 5 times in a row and stop, and it'll keep doing that over and over again until you replace that bad RAM chip. If it is that chip and that chip is in fact bad, it will stop blinking 5 times in a row and it'll start blinking 4 times in a row, which might be this RAM chip. So you replace this one. If you've replaced all of those and it's still blinking, and you've replaced all 8 of your RAM chips and it's still blinking, it might be the multiplexer. So sometimes it's easier if you're chasing 1, 2, or 3 of these just to replace the multiplexers and socket them out or take them out and test them in another machine, which is why it's good to have a machine like this where every one of the chips is socketed. So another good thing about the Dead Test cartridge is you can run the Dead Test cartridge with a lot of components removed from the system for testing. So these are your CIAs, your complex interface adapters. These have timers in them. They're not really clocks. They do tell time, but when you turn the machine off, they forget the time. When you turn them on, they don't know what time it is. They just start at 0 and work their way up. They also control your interfaces, so your keyboard and your cartridge ports and some other things that are on here. Pull those 2 out, you'll get the machine to boot with the Dead Test cartridge, at which point it'll complain that they're bad. Well, of course they're bad. They're not there. you can pull out all 3 ROMs, your kernel ROM, your basic ROM, or your, what's the other ROM? Character ROM. When you pull all 3 of those out, this has code in it that replaces those. So you'll know that, again, the machine boots up, and since it works without the ROMs, but it doesn't work with the ROMs, then it's a problem with one of the ROM chips. So you can put one in and turn it on, you put the other one in and turn it on, put the third one in and turn it on, and it will tell you on its screen that these ROM chips are bad. You can't pull out the PLA, but you can swap the PLA from another machine into here and see if things change. You can pull out the SID, and the machine will work without the SID, without the 3 ROMs, without the CIAs. And then you can do your diagnostics from there. Let's take a look at the diagnostic screen itself. On the diagnostic screen, you're going to get a lot of information. It's going to check your color RAM. It's going to check your sound by actually playing some music. It's not a thorough test, but it's enough of a test to know that, you know, the SID is working or not working, or maybe one of the channels isn't working. It's going to check the screen RAM. It's going to check the system RAM. It's going to check all of the cartridges. And then if you don't have what's called a loopback connector set, it's going to fail on all of the external stuff. So there are loopback connectors you can find where you plug something into the keyboard and the dead test cartridge will send a signal out, expect a signal back, and if it gets the signal back that it expects, then that works out very well. It will send out information to the joysticks and expect information back. It will send information out to the cassette port. It will expect information back. Something just fell across the room. Okay. Anyway, so that's what's called a loopback test, where it will send data out and expect data to come back. And so that can diagnose farther down the line. I have not had a need to use that. Honestly, I just like repairing these things and getting them working. This has been a real quick look at the dead test cartridge. Again, there will be links in the description below for a dead test cartridge like this one that has the ability to, you know, actually put some fingers somewhere and pull it out. There will be links for the Easy Flash cartridge. I got this one from Australia. And there will be links for the VersaCart. I got this one from RetroBits. So there is a video right over here I think you will enjoy next. This one. Thanks for being awesome.